All right, good afternoon. My name is Courtney Overton, and I am a member of MILE. I'm very happy to see all of our guests here today for our Lunch and Learn. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two amazing speakers, and then I will give a short introduction about their topic, and then they'll take it from there. So first, I'm going to start with Miss Davis. So, Miss Davis, thank you. Miss Davis is an education consultant who specializes in improving literacy outcomes and instructional strategies in secondary and post-secondary settings. With a Master of Arts in Teaching degree from Johns Hopkins University and nearly 15 years of national and international teaching experience, her commitment to the holistic development of students and educators is evident to all who meet her, which you'll see today. In addition to being a National Board Certified teacher and a Fulbright Scholar, Ms. Davis also serves as an adjunct professor at Morgan State University. There, she helps prepare pre-service teachers for success in the classroom. And next up, we have Dr. Kerry Alexander. So, Dr. Alexander is an assistant professor of literacy education in the Department of Teaching and Learning, Policy and Leadership at the University of Maryland, College Park. As a teacher and a researcher, she's committed to community-centered inquiry and supporting equitable literacy practices alongside families, teachers, and learners. Specific areas of study include responsive instructional design, justice-focused coaching, multimodal and critical literacies, and cultural historical dimensions of literacy theory and practice. Dr. Alexander taught elementary, English language arts, and reading for 10 years prior to receiving her PhD in language and literacy studies from the University of Texas at Austin. So, Ms. Davis and Dr. Alexander will be presenting on building a writing community, fostering collaboration, confidence, and growth in the primary and secondary classrooms. So they'll be talking about how a strong writing community can foster collaboration, build student confidence, and support growth. I'm your moderator today, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see all of your faces, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Ms. Davis and Dr. Alexander. Thanks for being here.
All right, welcome everybody. We're really excited to be here, to see everybody. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. We always like to start with some sort of SEL, see how everybody's doing this morning. So on a scale of dogs and animals and pets of all sorts, how is everybody feeling today? You can put it in the chat. Feel free to speak out. How is everybody doing? How are you feeling? How's your day going thus far? All right, and then tell us why. So we have an 8 from Lauren. So again, just tell us how you're feeling and why. Feel free to come off the mic and kind of engage with us today so that we can see how everybody is.
Mhm.
All right, so we got some 2s, some 3s, some 8s, couple of 8s, a few 8s, okay. All right, anybody have a particular reason that they're feeling away today? Want to share out? Feel free to come off mic and let us know.
Yeah, lots of eights.
Mhm.
Okay, I guess I can go first. I'm off of camera because I'm an internship, but I'm feeling like an 8 because I just got finished with like EdCPA, so I'm finally catching up with the rest of my work that I put on the back burner. So I'm kind of, yeah, it's feeling like an 8 right now.
All right, next person. How you feeling today and why?
Hmm. Well, I can definitely share. I'm a 3. I'm ready to eat that sugar cookie. I feel really cool to be part of such a great learning community today. Hmm.
All right, well then let's go ahead and keep it going and thank you everybody for sharing out. Our objective today, of course, is to help you all understand what community building for writers can entail, explore some tools, and kind of define what your role as the educator is in this process. Kerry, go ahead and go over our norms just very briefly for us, please.
Sure. So we know that it's lunchtime, and yeah, we're very hopeful that we'll have some friendly faces to look at. So if you could keep your video on as best you can. I know some of you are at internship, and participate with us. We want to learn from you as much as you are wanting to learn with us. So of course, it's okay to disagree, but let's be respectful. We're assuming best intent as we move forward with our shared learning today. And if you want to step out, of course, please, we know you have things to attend to, but feel free to put up a coffee symbol if you're heading out to the restroom or something.
All right, and then our agenda for today, we do have like a quick journal, couple interactive things with you guys today. We're going to go over some case studies of some common things that we hear from educators. We're going to go over those 3 aspects of building community that we talked about, and then we're going to have a small Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started with our journal for today. So we're going to show you a writing classroom, and we just want to know what stands out to you about the writing process in the 2nd grade class. Then we want you to tell us what you can assume the teacher did to help cultivate this writing community. So first, we want you to tell us what you noticed about the writing process in this class. And then second, what are some things you think the teacher did to help cultivate this writing community? Now, Kerry's going to put a link in the chat. We have a Padlet, whoop, whoop. So we want to kind of gather some of your responses, see how what everybody's thinking. We want to have it in a central place. So again, in the chat, Kerry has put that Padlet so that you can share your response to this question.
Evergreen leaves can be many shapes and sizes. What is it for the capital?
This week we were focusing on informational and explanatory text, which is standard W 2.2. The students should be able to write information about something and support it with facts and definitions. The way I organized my lessons this week is on day 1 I had the students read informational text. So they had to actually read a passage on evergreen trees before they wrote about the evergreen trees, which incorporated reading into our lesson.
Evergreen tree leaves can be many shapes and sizes. When you think of an evergreen tree, you probably picture a tree with.
The students read a Scholastic News article on evergreen trees. We went over it on the Scholastic News website. We highlighted some details, circled some explanations, highlighted some important words and definitions, and then they used the article to do their planning on their T-chart. So I had the students use a Step Up to Writing T-chart. They are able to plan what their topic is. They are able to write 3 details that support the topic, and they're able to write 2 explanations for each detail. And then they end with a conclusion sentence. And it's all color-coded. So topics and conclusions are green, the stars are yellow, and the explanations are red. So I had them go into the magazine and use stars to highlight what details they wanted to use, and then underline what explanations they wanted to use. You're going to write your rough draft. That's easy. We do it all the time. You're going to color code, right? Try your best to use your capitals, periods, and correct spelling. When you're finished, I want you to read a book until your partner is finished. When your partner is finished, you guys are going to trade papers, read each other's papers out loud, and make the corrections that are on your pencil, right? On day 2, I had them write their rough drafts. So what they did is they took the information from their graphic organizer and they organized it into paragraph form on a piece of lined paper. So after they do that, they color code the sentences to match their graphic organizer. So the topic is underlined in green, the details underlined in yellow, the explanations are underlined in red. They complete their paragraph and switch papers with their partner. And I have their partner read their paper out loud so that they can hear it. And then they're able to go in and correct mistakes, look for capitals, look for periods, look for a variety of words, make sure things are spelled correctly, then make sure that they make sense when you actually read them out loud. And so then when I edit them, they are almost perfect because somebody else helped them.
Was it evergreen or yeah? Was it evergreen or evergreens? Right here. Evergreen. Evergreen. Yeah. No, evergreen. No, because it doesn't make sense to say some evergreen trees. Some evergreen.
That's what we're going to do today. We're going to look for pictures, and then you guys are going to open up your keynote. When you open up your keynote, all your presentations are going to pop up from last time, right? So you have to click up here. You have to click presentations. And then you need to click the white one with the plus sign to start a new presentation. So day 3 is when we normally would write our final drafts. But this time, instead of having them just write a perfect published paper, I had them put the information into a keynote presentation. So I had them organize the sections of their writing into slides. So they had a topic slide, they had a detail and explanation slide. Well, they had 3 detail and explanation slides, and then they had a conclusion slide. And they were able to type their information into that and correct whatever mistakes were there instead of just writing it on a piece of paper. The way that this prepares a student for future grades, for online assessments, is the typing that they did. Having them be familiar with that keyboard and familiar with how to use Google and pull information and use evidence to support their text is going to be really beneficial when they get into 3rd grade and have to start typing responses and knowing how to use a keyboard. So this is a good practice for them.
Evergreen by Christian Velez.
Perfect.
Evergreens stay green all year. Animals can't use every part of evergreens. From top to bottom, evergreen trees have lots to give to animals. All kinds of animals eat evergreen seeds. Evergreen trees can have many shapes or sizes.
So on the last day, day 4, they presented their keynotes to the class. And speaking and listening is a pretty huge part of Common Core. It's a new challenge for most of us to have the students get up and speak to each other, use academic language. And so the kids took each of their iPads, we hooked it up to the Apple TV, and they stood in front of the class and gave their presentation. And they had practice speaking in front of a group. The kids got to practice being part of an audience, being respectful and polite. And then, they clapped for each other at the end and told each other good job, and it was really fun. Anybody should be able to teach this pretty easy as long as you have an article for the kids to use that they can read and you have a graphic organizer that your kids feel comfortable planning with. I think it's a piece of cake. They just have to, edit with their partner and understand what their expectations are.
All right, so we want to give you all a few minutes. Again, we're going to put that Padlet back into the chat just so you can have some think time, some brain time, and feel free to chart your responses. So again, what stands out to you about the writing process with this educator, and then also in this class, and then also what can you assume the teacher did to help cultivate this writing community?
Mhm.
So we'll take a few minutes, feel free to write into the Padlet, and then we'll share out as a group.
I'm already seeing some great stuff in here. Work around publishing, peer review. It feels collaborative. Mhm. I keep refreshing. Anyone else have something they want to put in there? Oh, that's a great one. Mm-hmm. Mhm. I can't help but agree with so many of these statements. Looks like you have about 1 more minute.
All right, so if we could just have a few people share out and kind of tell us their response. So you can feel free to come on camera, not come on camera. But if you could share out and just let us know what you think, or what are some things that stood out, and what are some assumptions you can make about the teacher.
Um, for me, for the first question where it says what stands out about the writing process in the second grade class, I think that the beginning where she allows the students to format what they're going to say before they start. So the paper that they had where they went over the topics and then their ideas, and then the conclusion at the end helps them to map out how they're going to write on their final draft, or like their final draft paper and the paper before where they're peer reviewing. Along with the peer review, I said in the Padlet as well that I think it gives them a chance to like review work before it's turned in, and because they're doing it like to their class, like with their classmates and everything, it helps them for when they're doing it alone, to know that like, oh, I need to review my work before I turn it in. And then that way, the teacher said at the end when she's grading them, she's not making a lot of like, she's not having to check a lot of things because they've already done that on their own.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. Next person, what stands out about this writing process, and what can you assume about the educator?
Um, yeah, I thought it was interesting that the students were like well prepared to peer review one another, and it was very clear to me that the educator took the time before this moment to like address the expectations of this and how to like give and receive respectful feedback, because a lot of the time at this age, and I'm currently placed in a second grade classroom, and I understand that like emotions and tensions can be high, and the fact that she didn't even have to go in and explain what they were doing just shows that a lot of time and a lot of care was taken to make this go smoothly. And it's a really great resource to use for all age groups, and I don't think we use it enough with younger students. So this was a really good way to like model that respectful behavior for kids.
Very good. And thank you so much, everybody, for sharing verbally and in the Padlet. And let's keep going. So we're going to go into some case studies, and Kerry's going to start us off with some things that we commonly hear teachers say.
Hi, everybody. It's such a treat to be here, first of all, with you. Talking about writing is such a wonderful thing for me. I love it. I've also started in my role at UMD, stepping into classrooms and being with teachers. We wanted to present a couple of what we might call social pitfalls that happen inside teaching communities. The first being just a case study, something you may have thought yourself or you've heard a teacher say, my students just aren't ready for that. So in this case, Miss Carter asks for second graders to write a short story, but many struggled to form a complete sentence. She sighs, ah, and she thinks maybe they're just not ready for this. I should wait until they can write better before I assign them stories. Similar to our video before, we're only going to take a minute or so. But on the Padlet, there is another response space called Case Study 1. What assumptions in this particular scenario is Ms. Carter making about readiness? The second question, how can she ensure all students can participate? So you may want to just pop into the Padlet. You could unmute if you would prefer. What assumptions inside that statement? Let's hear from two people. Have you heard that?
I feel like an assumption that's being made.
Oops. Yeah.
Hi. I feel like an assumption being made by this teacher is that maybe because they might struggle with actually like writing out, or like they might struggle with one part of writing, she thinks that they won't be able to do any part of writing. Like she could, instead of saying that they're just not ready to write stories, she could adjust like the expectations and the supports that she provides with them so that they can still write those stories.
So framing it as an asset, a particular problem of practice, what can I do as a teacher in order to ensure that we can get to that space? That's beautiful. I'm already seeing a couple of responses on our case study one in the Padlet, but let's go ahead and move on. We really just want to plant some seeds for certain ideas that do pop up. So case study 4 is a very close to my heart, fourth grade. I taught that for 10 years. And he says, you know what, we don't have time. We don't have time for that. Mr. Patel plans to have his fourth graders write a reflection after a read aloud, but he worries it's just going to take too long. We know that curriculum is often scripted, and we have particular parameters that we're asked to use inside schooling institutions. And time tends to be one of the biggest hurdles that teachers mention. He says, we need to move on. Sorry, there's no time for this extra writing. In your practice, what are some quick, effective, and meaningful ways that you have seen your mentor teacher or have considered using to incorporate writing when you feel like you don't have as much time? Again, feel free to write it in the Padlet for case study 2, or turn on your audio. We'd love to hear from you. I'm already seeing some work in the Padlet. How do we move our writing, see writing as something bigger than just the ELA block, right? And across content areas, how are we really seeing writing and lifting it as a literacy of meaning making? That's beautiful. Does anybody feel like sharing aloud? Great. We see some other pieces in the Padlet, note taking. Even if it's a few sentences, writing a main idea. They can have a prompt for a warm up using different ways to engage writing in as an activity of engagement. Anyone else?
So for my, can you hear me?
Yes.
So for my placement now, my mentor, we do DEAR, so drop everything and read and write sometimes. But we can do it like we do it during science. We would do it during math, like if it's during a math talk. So that way, like we're switching it up a little bit because my kids are always like, we're bored, we want to do something different. We want to do something that's more like interesting. So just doing that and incorporating, like everyone else said, like in different subjects, not just reading. I feel like that's been very impactful because I think last week we were writing about like weathering and climate change. And like after they like watch something, a video, we had them like write a sentence, but we had to sentence them there. But they were able to write about like what they saw about weathering and then how it connected to them. I know some of my students wrote about it's snowing outside their house and how they played in the snow and how that affected like them getting to school and not going to school. So just different things like that and incorporating it in other subjects. I think that's very important. And that's something I did.
Love that. Thank you for sharing, Amira. All right. Do you want to move on to case study 3?
Yeah. And so case study 3 is our secondary example. Mrs. Reynolds assigns a personal narrative, but several students turn in incomplete work or nothing at all. And she's frustrated. So she tells a colleague, they just don't care about writing no matter what I try. So for this educator, what factors might contribute to students' disengagement with the writing, and what strategies can encourage student investment in writing? So again, she feels like they don't care because they're turning in incomplete work or they're not turning in anything. So what factors might contribute to their disengagement? And then also what strategies can be used to encourage student investment in the writing? And again, Kerry put that Padlet in for the people who just joined us. Go for it. And feel free to share out loud. I like to engage with folks. I like to talk with folks. So feel free to share verbally as well.
Hi again, Callie and Shajia. I think one of the factors, especially because it is a personal narrative, a lot of the students might not feel like, one, that they have anything like worth writing about, or like it might just feel too vulnerable to them to like share something personal and they don't know quite how to do it. So I feel like it would just have to involve the instructor like taking time to like show the value and show the different ways that personal narratives can be written, because it might not be a lack of like caring. It's just like, I don't know what to get, like I don't know what to write. What can I say that nobody else has said? So giving them like that confidence or having them like brainstorm things together could have helped them become more invested or like feel more confident in completing the assignment.
That was really, really good.
Thank you. And Shajia now.
Oh, yeah. I was also going to say, to piggyback off of that, I think maybe even the instructor modeling them writing their own personal narrative, showing that an everyday person can also write a personal narrative, and including like what they would put into theirs, so that students have a better idea of what they could do, so they don't feel like they have nothing to like work off of.
Very great. All right, and so now we're going to go ahead and go into our 3 aspects of building a writing community. These are just some things that we want to share from both the primary and secondary perspective that we think can help you all as well. So the first is what community building for writers entails, and Kerry's going to start us off.
Yeah, so throughout the next little chunk, you're going to see us sort of popping back and forth through examples from our own classrooms and drawing on some of the responses that you provided. It sounds very similar and also a very different time in teaching than when I was in the classroom. However, I think what you guys are saying about vulnerability, making time and making space and modeling have been a real key connector across even different states and years and practices. So in the elementary classroom, something that I've continued to see in my research and sort of a contrast in schools today is this idea of the invitation to write and how we expand the children's attention to their own stories, to their memory of having shared the previous day, how they're using materials over time. Similar to the video that we saw, they were living inside the process rather than focusing so hard on the product every single day. And so thinking through how we use our mentor texts is very, very valuable in an elementary classroom. How in our video, she was using it automatically an article. What do I want the children to be able to do, and then giving them access to that repeatedly over time. Something I've been seeing in classrooms that I think is almost a pitfall or a default is using drawing as a reward for having finished writing, rather than thinking about in what ways are we using drawing as an invitation to write, to build ideas on paper, to use that drawing in order to make sense of what I meant, and to fuel that energy to compose even when the teacher is not there. So that's something we can work on, is writing from our drawings. So in this picture as well, this came from my classroom, developing shared experiences around languaging, right? So even though writing is often in school seen as pencil paper labor, right, or on the computer, it's based in our sharing, our talking, our storytelling, and so finding ways to as much as we can, fill that space with children's language helps us understand where to begin our first steps as writing teachers. So I heard this in some responses too, around like dear time. How are we using quick writes? How might we use morning pages, sitting together with notebooks in order to shake out all of our story? So building community, I think, it has to do with that connected time across days. So instead of just sharing the work that somebody has completed that day and reading directly from their notebook, how are they sharing, oh, how did I remember what I wrote yesterday? Or what am I thinking about my descriptions today? What did I use that really I felt really proud of, right? So how do we honor sharing as the habits of writers and not always the production of what has been written? So that's my 25 cents. Cha-ching.
And then I would say from a secondary perspective, um, a big part of building community is risk taking, and making sure that they feel comfortable, kind of like activating their authentic voice. So, and encouraging their authentic voice, say it how you need to say it, and then we'll work it up later, but just giving them the opportunity to just speak, and get feedback, and also to be celebrated and to just have a safe space to express themselves. So here's an example. After studying Greek mythology, my kids wrote and performed plays that explain natural phenomenon. And then we actually performed it and was like, bring your sheets and we'll make toga and we'll do stuff to kind of like liven it up. Also have a couple more examples of what this can look like. So here's Free Write Friday. Every Friday, for journal, it was free write. You can write about anything you want to write. Some of it was very emo because there are a lot of emotions in secondary school. Some of it, was about their weekend. Some of it was silly. And here's one of my silly ones.
All right. Yeah. Yo, yo, yo. Wait. Rap the fact. Go to the store to get some rap snacks. I'm on this beat, a dog licking your feet. In the house where they cook some meat. And now I'm done because the dog is done licking your feet.
Again, a poem about rap snacks and dogs licking feet. But it's Free Write Friday, so you can write about whatever you want, right? And then here's another one. It's about 2 minutes. This is when they're giving feedback on an argumentative writing that they did that week.
I know it's a lot. You all have some really good points. I want you to share out some of your glows and your grows that you were given. I know I can't hear everybody, but I do just kind of want a little bit of feedback on some of the glows and grows that you received. So give me one glow, give me one grow. Yes.
One of the glows that I got was that my reasoning was good and I had good handwriting, and one of the grows I got was to explain my evidence better.
All right. Next person. Charlie.
One of the glows I got is I had good evidence, and one of the grows I got is to try not to repeat something more than once.
All right, I like that. Okay, Sean?
The grows I got is that I used the example that nobody else did, and a grow that I got is I need to disprove the claim and have a timestamp.
All right, disprove the counterclaim and fix your timestamp. I like that. Melanie?
My glow was I had a reasonable claim and an argument, but I switched up the order of the E's and A's and the races there.
Okay, I remember that. Go ahead, Kaden.
My girl was that I should have better grammar. And my glows was that I restated the prompt well and I cited a video with good evidence.
Okay, I like that. Let's do Ethan.
My glow was good at disproving the counterclaim, and the grow I got was capitalizing the countries.
Your girl was what?
Capitalizing some of the countries.
Okay, so make sure you remember those proper nouns. Last one, let's go with Will.
One of my glows was it was very convincing, but one of my glows was I wasn't capitalizing proper nouns.
Okay, so that lets me know that we need to work on capitalization. You want to share yours?
Yes.
All right, last one.
The glow that I got from my feedback was the beginning and end was formatted well, but some rules were some of my spelling was off, and the explanation didn't have as much wasn't as good formatted as the beginning and end, and my handwriting could be better.
Okay, so that's what we're going to work on fixing. For the next part,
So again, these are all just parts of building. All right, next, tools and techniques.
Someday we have to stop and revisit all the brilliance that happens in your classroom, right? So that was a perfect example of using debrief time in order to share out something that fortifies the writer, right? Not just the writing that's on that page. And that can happen in elementary classrooms as well. When we see the emphasis on decoding and reading, we can't forget also that teaching writing is also teaching reading. It isn't going to be separate from that. Our work supporting children's ability to express themselves is the metaphorical, I had a friend say this, squat of literacy. It's the muscle that we're building. And in a world that is encouraging so much of that decoding and listening, our work is to sort of turn that inside out. So how do we do that? In my classroom, I would have a picture of glasses, right, or a graphic organizer, and one side would be the R side for reader, and the other side would be the W for writing. And anytime we picked up text, we would think about it with these two different lenses. And similar to that video we saw at the opening is that we have to start creating over time, right? This is a long game philosophy of teaching, teaching the writers, is we want to create shared codes or language in order to see what it is that the children are producing and so they can show you what they're trying, right? So similar to in a math class, you can look through their math and sort of see where they're making some thoughts or changes. The same thing can happen in writing if we are thoughtful enough to develop that with them. I see teachers circling, circle the words you're pretty sure you're not sure about their spelling. Put a little star by a phrase you used today that you felt very proud of, or is using our dependent or independent clauses, right? So in what ways do your materials and marks help teach the class with you, right? We would use writers' notebooks for generating ideas, drafting pads to get our ideas on paper, right? So I could look out in my room and see who was in what part of the process. When they started publishing, they might move to a different material, right? And so everybody would be able to see and navigate the different pieces without having to be reminded. Similarly, using a to-do list. And I saw on, I think it was TikTok, a to-do list. Ta-da! I finished that. Helps the students manage their own projects. At the end of the day, if we are teaching literacy and we're teaching writers, we want them to be able to develop the habits to move from their ideas, right, and their stories into sort of this work and then share out with audiences. So, centering audiences, having deadlines doesn't have to be scary. It can be the end goal in the celebration. So, um, thinking about the tools we use, including technology, to help us translate, right? We want to bring in as much language and languaging as we can, to support, even if we are not the speakers of the language that our children bring in, we can use the tools in order to support that process, moving from ideas into things.
And then in the secondary classroom is very similar. Of course, we have our writer's notebooks. I think protocols are wonderful, especially protocols for movement. So here's a picture of my former classroom. I don't teach there anymore, but I had a class of 38. So when you have 38 students and you need to move from small groups to like Socratic seminar, you need protocol, you need systems. So one of the things that I did, and you can't really see it, but on the floor, I had actual like decals that I bought from Dollar Tree, and they look like little feet. So each foot represented where they would put their desk during Socratic seminar. So we were able to go from our original seating, which was there, and they had black tape for their original seating, to Socratic seminar in 1 minute with 38 kids. And that's unheard of, but you're able to do it because you have those systems and those protocols in place. So if they know, hey, okay, I'm in the inner group and hey, I'm in the outer group, okay, let's go ahead and move 1 minute on the clock. And then we don't miss that instructional time. Also, I love Google Docs for editing. So they would share with their partners at their desk, and then they would have that sort of protocol for what to do. And again, you can't see it on the picture as much, but each desk had, but each desk had a label, so ABC, so that everybody would know what their role was for that day. And then, of course, mentor text and opportunities for publishing. A big part too is bringing in the parents. Like, even if every parent can't come, every parent will look at every student's work because everybody wants to know what everybody's doing. So that's a great way to affirm. So in the first picture, picture A, we have parents visiting and looking at some of their most recent work. And picture B, I did Student of the Month to kind of like affirm. And then we also had class incentives. And picture C in the middle, we were we are just about finished with A Midsummer Night's Dream. And there was a play that was showing in the city. And I'm like, oh, let's go. We're gonna go and see this play. So again, it's just a way to kind of like make it real for them. So these are just some things that you can do to kind of like extend the learning and the writing, not just in the classroom, but bringing people in and taking them out as well. All right, and then last but not least, the role of the educator in this process.
Yes, this is my favorite slide. I mean, it really is. So going into a classroom, if you're in someone else's, it can be more challenging, but you get to be the designer of that space, right? And the tools that you have in order to spark interest. So I love stuff, right? And I would go and purchase well, not purchase, I'd say, Mom, ask your friends at church if they have old typewriters in their garages. And I ended up getting flooded with 5 or 6 different typewriters. And for a while, just that tactile nature of choosing a letter, hearing the sound, seeing how ink prints, right, became the impetus for poetry and for short letters people wanted to type, right? So thinking about the materiality that you have, we would have, let's see, magnetic poetry on the classroom door. So if children are waiting, they're making tiny poems using bananagrams or Scrabble letters. They would often get these out during indoor recess just to play with language. So how are we making the materiality of our classrooms playful enough and celebrated enough that it becomes part of just our community space. The other piece is that, yes, scripts and curriculum are valuable. We had thought about what value should we teach them about sentences? Well, I mean, we could, but that's what that curriculum is going to sort of provide for you. But that's so partial because, like Ms. Thomas Davis says, we are in and out of that classroom. We want that realness of their stories to matter. So what do? We have to read a lot. So this slide for me is about the labor of the educator, the labor that you do to meet your students where they are, to learn about the languaging they're bringing in order to complement, not compliment like, hey, so nice, but complement like a fitting piece, the tools that they're will help them thrive. So that's what this is about. Lots of booklets. One time we made protest signs because that was what was happening in our world. And the second piece of that is your own life as a writer. So if you could go to the next slide, I added a picture. I just moved to Maryland and I have all my boxes around me, and I just unboxed all of my writer's notebooks. And I'd say the biggest practice for me, understanding what it means to be a writer, is to do my own work, right? So keeping a notebook, you may think it is easy to teach a sentence, but the more you wrestle with your own, the more you can see those itty bitty little tricks and tools and struggles that your writers are going to encounter. So study your writing, practice with it. I'd say that role, that labor is the labor of the writing teacher, is understanding your own writer life.
And from my perspective, I think a big part of it is your role is just making sure that writing is a part of the lived experience, that you're taking it from the pages in the classroom and all those things, and you're making sure that it is a part of their experience. So, of course, we have the things that we always say, model and be vulnerable and have routines. One of the things that I really want to highlight is the fourth bullet, where it says provide timely, actionable feedback, not just encouragement. Because I read a study that basically said that a lot of times with our GAL students, our gifted and advanced students, we give them feedback like, hey, do this, this, and this, and you'll get even better. But sometimes with our students who are struggling a little bit more, we tend to give them encouragement. Hey, you can do it, you'll get better, it's fine. But what those students need as well is actionable feedback. Hey, these are some things that you can actually do, and then you'll see improvement. So I definitely want to highlight that, and then also just show some different ways that we can make it real for them. So in this first picture, we have a presenter from Arts for Learning. His name is Jamal, and he goes into various schools throughout Maryland, and he uses spoken word, he uses rap, he uses all these different things to help teach. So he's an educator, but he's also a speaker. In the second picture, we had we had an author come, and he was really cool because he actually played instruments. So like they're listening to this story, but it's coming alive because it's coming alive with music. And then in the bottom picture, we partnered with Enoch Pratt. Love them. So if you're not partnering with them right now in your classroom, please make sure to make that a goal because they have a speaker series. And so in addition to having speakers come to and authors come to the central library, they also bring speakers and authors into schools. So we were able to get one of the teachers to come, authors to come, and she talked with the kids, and they had all these questions. And this was not a book that was in the curriculum. We just read for fun. We wrote about it for fun. And so sometimes it's okay to just kind of take the work out of it and just kind of, let it live a little bit. So again, we just want to make sure that we're always thinking through assumptions, involving our community, affirming our kiddos, giving them support, and just providing encouragement and focusing on growth. We do have a feedback link. So as we start our Q&A, I'm going to post that into the chat and just ask everybody to please, please, please give us feedback on today's speech and today's lunch and learn, because we do want to continue to learn in our practice as well. So again, that's in the chat. And we'll open it up for Q&A. Any questions, any dilemmas, any questions about us, anything that you want to pose, feel free. So again, it is in the chat. Please, please, please click on that and give us some feedback, because we do want to get better. All right, so again, that's in the chat, and feel free to come off mute or type in the chat and let us know your questions, comments, concerns. Kerry, we were that good. We don't have
Good, no questions.
questions.
Mm-hmm.